The sun rises without mercy. There is no gentle dawn. There is no slow awakening. Only light, sudden, blinding, absolute, spilling over a land that has already begun to burn. The horizon trembles. Heat waves ripple through the air, bending reality itself, turning distant shapes into ghosts that shimmer and fade. The ground below is cracked, hardened, ancient, a surface that has known thirst for centuries. Here, even the wind feels dry, stripped of life, carrying only dust and silence across an endless expanse. For a moment, nothing moves. Then, something changes. A faint vibration beneath the sand, a whisper of movement where there should be none. Coiled in perfect stillness, a rattlesnake waits. Its body blends perfectly with the earth, a living extension of stone and shadow. Only its eyes move, cold, unblinking, measuring. In this world, patience is power. A single strike must be enough. It cuts the silence. Across the open desert, a coyote emerges from the heat haze, lean, calculating, relentless. Its paws press lightly against the burning ground, each step deliberate, conserving energy in a place where waste means death. It pauses, its ears shift, reading a language written in scent and movement. Somewhere nearby, life is running out of time. Above, the sky offers no refuge, only dominion. A hawk circles high in the searing blue, riding invisible currents of rising heat. Its shadow glides silently over the desert floor, passing over rock, over bone, over anything too slow to escape. Then, without warning, it folds its wings. A diving fall. Speed becomes a weapon. The air tears at its body as it drops like a bullet toward the earth below. On the ground, chaos erupts. A lizard bursts into motion, its tiny legs moving in a blur as it races across sand hot enough to burn flesh. It zigzags instinctively, chasing shade that barely exists, its entire body driven by a single command: survive. There is no margin for error here. There are no second chances. Temperatures rise beyond 50 degrees Celsius. Water is not only scarce, it is almost non-existent. Every drop is contested. Every breath costs energy. Every decision carries consequences. This is not a place for the weak. It is a battlefield disguised as a desert. A world where life persists not because conditions are kind, but because it has learned to endure the impossible. Predators hunt with precision. Prey survive only by instinct, and between them lies a fragile balance, one that can break with a single misstep. The wind rises again, sweeping the land like a warning. Grains of sand dance across the surface, erasing tracks, hiding stories, resetting the stage for the next encounter. Nothing lasts here. Not footprints, not weakness, not hesitation. Only survival. Only the relentless rhythm of life against all odds. And as the sun climbs higher, tightening its grip on everything below, the desert reveals its true nature, not empty, not silent, but alive, watching, waiting. Relentless, unyielding, welcome to the Sonoran Desert. In the Sonoran Desert, survival is not a matter of strength, but of strategy. Water is everything, and here it is almost nothing. There are no rivers crossing this land. There are no lakes gleaming under the sun. Only the rare promise of rain, unpredictable, fleeting, and often gone before it can be used. For every creature that lives here, the absence of water is a constant threat. Dehydration is not a possibility. It is an inevitability, waiting for the smallest mistake. To survive, life has rewritten its own rules. By day, the desert becomes an oven. The sun dominates every inch of the landscape, driving temperatures to extremes that can kill within hours. The sand burns, the rocks radiate heat, even the air itself feels hostile. And so, many creatures disappear. They retreat underground, to burrows dug deep beneath the surface, where the heat cannot reach. In these hidden chambers, life pauses, breathing slows, movement is minimal, energy is conserved. Above the surface, the desert seems empty, but it is only sleeping, because when the sun falls, everything changes. The temperature drops, the shadows lengthen, and the desert awakens. Under the cover of darkness, movement returns, soft, cautious, calculated. Eyes adapted to the night scan the terrain, ears catch the faintest vibrations. Every sound matters, every step is a risk. A kangaroo rat emerges from its burrow, small and fragile against the vastness that surrounds it. It moves quickly, hopping across the sand in erratic bursts, gathering seeds, small fragments of survival scattered across an unforgiving world. But it is not alone, never. Just a few meters away, partially buried beneath the sand, a snake waits. Motionless as stone, invisible, only the slight movement of grains reveals its presence. Its body is perfectly camouflaged, its heat-sensitive vision tuned to detect even the smallest pulse of life. It does not chase, it does not waste energy. It waits. The rat stops, a moment stretched between life and death. Then, movement, a strike faster than sight. But the rat leaps, twisting in the air in an explosive burst of instinct and speed. It lands just beyond danger, its heart racing, its body already preparing for the next escape. In the Sonoran Desert, this is the balance. Predators must be efficient. Prey must be perfect. Camouflage conceals. Speed saves. Venom ends the chase before it begins. Endurance allows survival when everything else fails. There is no single path to survival here, only adaptations shaped by relentless pressure. And even so, nothing is guaranteed. Across the open terrain, a predator moves in slow motion, each step deliberate, each pause calculated. The heat still lingers, rising in shimmering waves that blur the line between reality and illusion. In this distorted world, visibility is compromised, shapes bend, distances deceive. But instinct cuts through everything, because hesitation is fatal. In this desert, survival is not occasional. It is constant, every second, every movement, every breath, an endless test against a land that offers nothing freely and takes everything without warning. Survival here is not occasional, it is constant. The Sonoran Desert is not a single place. It is a vast and changing world, stretching across borders, defying simplicity and transforming with every kilometer. From the rugged lands of northern Mexico to the arid expanses of the southwestern United States, this desert spans thousands of square kilometers, crossing invisible human lines that mean nothing to the life that inhabits it. Here, nature does not follow borders, only conditions. From above, the landscape reveals its true scale. Air currents carry us over an expanse that seems endless, an ocean of land and stone. But this is not a uniform desert. It is a mosaic of extremes. Rugged mountain ranges rise suddenly from the desert floor, their shadows carving sharp lines across the terrain. Between them, valleys stretch wide and open, accumulating heat like vast natural ovens. Farther ahead, the ground softens. Sand dunes stretch across the land in slow, sculpted waves, shaped by winds that never truly rest. Each crest tells a story of movement, of grains carried, lifted, and deposited again over centuries. Nothing here is still, even when it appears silent. Then, the scars of water. Dry riverbeds snake across the desert floor, winding channels carved by forces that are absent most of the year. They remain inactive, cracked and lifeless under the sun. until, suddenly, they are not. Because the Sonoran Desert holds a secret. Unlike many of the world's deserts, it does not depend on a single rainy season. It has two. In the height of summer, distant atmospheric changes begin to stir. Moisture travels northward, drawn into the desert skies. The air thickens, the light dims. And on the horizon, something rare begins to form. Clouds, dark, towering, and heavy with promise. Storms gather with an intensity that feels almost out of place in such a dry world. Thunder rolls across the open land, lightning fractures the sky, and then, without hesitation, the rain falls. Heavy, sudden, transformative. The desert drinks quickly, absorbing every drop it can before the water disappears again. Dry channels awaken, turning into torrents that carve deeper into the land. Low areas flood, dust turns to mud, silence turns to sound. And then, as quickly as it came, it is gone. The sun returns. The water recedes. But something has changed, because this brief and violent gift of rain is what makes the Sonoran Desert unlike any other. It feeds a hidden abundance, a burst of life waiting beneath the surface. Long-buried seeds begin to activate. Insects emerge, predators prepare. From the air, the transformation is subtle but undeniable. Green patches appear where there was once only brown. Movement increases. The desert breathes. This is not a barren land. It is a land of contrasts, of extremes, of constant change. Rock and sand, drought and flood, stillness and sudden explosion. And within that variation lies opportunity. Because in a world where conditions change so dramatically, only the most adaptable can endure. Only those who can read the land, who can respond to its rhythms, will survive. And where there is variation, there is life. In the heart of the Sonoran Desert, where the land seems too harsh to support life, giants rise from the ground. Silent, towering, resilient. The saguaro cactus. These living pillars stand like skyscrapers of the desert, some reaching more than 12 meters into the sky, their arms extending outward as if frozen mid-gesture. They are not just plants, they are architects of survival, shaping an entire ecosystem around them. Because in a land defined by scarcity, the saguaro holds what others cannot. Water. Hidden beneath its thick, pleated skin lies a reservoir, carefully stored from scarce rains, preserved for months, sometimes years. Each cactus becomes a sanctuary, a vertical lifeline in an otherwise unforgiving world. And life gathers around it. As the sun climbs higher, shadows stretch and shrink across the desert floor. Time passes not in hours, but in movement, light slowly dragging across the cactus ridges, revealing textures sculpted by decades of growth, a time-lapse of endurance, a monument to patience. But stillness is an illusion. A sharp tapping echoes in the dry air. High on the side of a saguaro, a woodpecker clings firmly to the surface, its beak striking with precision, again and again. Each impact sends small fragments downward as it carves into the flesh of the cactus. It is not an act of destruction. It is creation. The bird is building a home. Layer by layer, it hollows out a deep cavity inside the cactus, carefully and methodically. Inside, the plant responds, sealing the internal walls with a hardened lining that prevents water loss. Together, plant and bird form an unlikely alliance, one shaping the other, both benefiting in ways neither could achieve alone. When the woodpecker leaves, the story does not end. It begins. The empty cavity becomes a refuge for others. Small birds move in. Later, as the seasons pass, a silent figure may claim the space. An owl. Hidden in the cool interior, it waits out the relentless heat of the day. Protected from the sun, Sheltered from predators, it becomes part of the cactus's quiet community. At night, it will emerge, another hunter in a land where darkness offers opportunity. At the base of the saguaro, life continues in smaller forms. Insects crawl across its surface, drawn by moisture, shade, the faint promise of sustenance. Ants trace invisible highways along the bark. Beetles slip into the cracks. Each plays a role, part of a complex network sustained by a single towering organism. Even in death, the saguaro gives. When it finally collapses, after decades, sometimes centuries, it leaves behind nutrients, shelter, and space for new life to grow. Nothing is wasted here. Every stage matters. The cactus is more than a plant. It is a world, a provider of water, a builder of homes, a silent guardian in a desert that offers little but demands everything. And as the sun continues its relentless ascent, casting sharp, shifting shadows across the land, the saguaros remain, motionless, unyielding, and essential. In a place where survival is never guaranteed, they make life possible. When the desert reaches its most unforgiving point, when the sun is at its highest and the ground itself seems to burn, most life retreats. But not all. Some creatures do not flee the heat. They master it. Reptiles. In the Sonoran Desert, these cold-blooded survivors are perfectly adapted to a world of extremes. Unlike mammals, they do not struggle to maintain a constant body temperature. Instead, they surrender to the environment and use it to their advantage. Energy is valuable here, and reptiles waste nothing. As the first light spreads across the desert floor, a rattlesnake emerges from the cool shelter of its hiding place. Its body moves slowly at first, stiff from the cold of the night, but it does not rush. It seeks the sun. Carefully, it coils onto a flat rock, positioning each curve of its body to absorb heat. This is basking, a ritual as essential as breathing. With each passing minute, the heat seeps in, fueling the muscles, sharpening reflexes, awakening a predator. Stillness becomes preparation, because once it warms up, it becomes something completely different. Nearby, a desert iguana begins its day. It moves with surprising confidence over sand that would burn the skin of most animals. Its pale coloration reflects sunlight, reducing heat absorption, while its behavior does the rest. It runs between patches of shade, stops only briefly, and then moves again, always calculating, always balancing exposure and survival. But even it has limits. When the heat becomes too intense, it disappears beneath the surface, digging into cooler layers of sand where temperatures drop enough to endure. Here, underground, the desert loosens its grip. This is the rhythm of reptilian life. Surface and shelter, heat and escape, exposure and retreat. And then, there is something slower, heavier, more deliberate. The Gila monster. Its thick, patterned body moves with a quiet confidence, unbothered by the harshness around it. Unlike the swift iguana or the precise snake, it does not rely on speed. It relies on endurance and venom. It spends most of its life hidden, conserving energy in burrows, emerging only when necessary. But when it does, it carries one of the desert's most potent weapons. Its bite is slow, almost methodical, but once it happens, it is unmistakable. In a land where efficiency means survival, even the Gila monster's patience becomes a strategy. And then, without warning, the attack. A sudden burst of movement shatters the stillness. The rattlesnake, now fully energized by the sun, launches forward with terrifying speed. Its body uncoils in an instant, fangs extended, injecting venom with surgical precision. The moment lasts less than a second, but its impact is definitive. In the Sonoran Desert, hesitation is a luxury no reptile can afford. Every action must be calculated, every movement purposeful. Because here, survival is not about dominance. It is about adaptation, about knowing when to move, when to hide, and when to strike. And under the relentless sun, where heat becomes both enemy and ally, these creatures endure not in spite of the desert, but because they have learned to become part of it. In the Sonoran Desert, the most dangerous predators are often the ones you never see. There are no warning calls, no dramatic chases, no visible pursuit across open ground, only silence. And beneath that silence, something waiting. A snake lies half buried in the sand, its body curved into a shape that mimics the earth itself. Its scales catch the light just enough to disappear, blending perfectly with dust and scattered stones. From a distance, it is nothing, just another part of the desert. But it is watching. Every grain of sand becomes a sensor, every vibration a signal. The world, for this predator, is not seen, it is felt. It does not move. It does not waste energy, because here, survival belongs to those who spend less and gain more. Time passes slowly under the rising heat. The sun climbs higher, pressing down on everything below, forcing life into motion. Somewhere nearby, a small rodent emerges from its shelter, driven by hunger and the need to gather what little the desert offers. It moves cautiously. It stops, listens, moves again. Its whiskers twitch as it crosses the open ground, unaware that each step brings it closer to something it cannot detect. There is no scent carried by the wind, no shadow to warn it, no sound to betray the danger. Only stillness. The snake waits. Its muscles remain coiled but relaxed, conserving every ounce of strength. Its tongue flicks briefly, tasting the air, confirming what it already knows. The prey is near. Closer. The rodent stops just a few meters away, rising slightly on its hind legs. For a moment, the desert holds its breath. And then, impact. The attack is instantaneous, a blur of movement so fast it seems unreal. The snake's body uncoils with explosive force. Its fangs connect with precision. Venom flows in a fraction of a second, delivered not in excess, but in exactly the right measure. Efficiency is everything. The rodent reacts, jumping backward, fleeing in panic, but the damage is done. The venom begins to act almost immediately, altering the body from within. Muscles weaken, coordination fades. The desert, once passable, becomes impossible. The snake does not pursue. It does not need to. Instead, it withdraws, returning to stillness, allowing time to finish what the attack began. Minutes later, it follows the fading trail, guided by scent and instinct, claiming what it has already secured. A hunt completed, with minimal effort. This is the genius of venom. In a place where energy is limited and failure can mean death, reptiles have evolved a method that reduces risk almost to nothing. No prolonged struggle, no exhausting chase, only patience and precision. Silence becomes strategy. Stillness becomes power. Throughout the Sonoran Desert, this method repeats endlessly. Hidden predators wait beneath the sand, beneath the rock, beneath the illusion of emptiness. Each one is part of a system where success is measured not by strength, but by efficiency. Because here, the loudest hunters do not survive. The fastest do not always win. Only the most patient. Only the most precise. Only those who understand that in a world ruled by extremes, the quietest moment can be the most lethal. In a land where water decides everything, survival should be impossible for the smallest creatures. And yet, they thrive. As darkness settles over the Sonoran Desert, the ground begins to stir. What seemed empty under the crushing weight of the sun now reveals a hidden world, one built not on strength, but on precision, instinct, and extraordinary adaptation. From beneath the sand, a tiny figure emerges, the kangaroo rat. Small, fragile-looking, and surrounded by danger at every moment, it is one of the desert's most successful survivors. Not because it dominates its environment, but because it has learned to outmaneuver it with intelligence. It moves in sudden bursts, propelled by powerful hind legs that launch it across the sand in unpredictable arcs. Each jump is deliberate, each landing calculated. There is no steady rhythm here, only movement designed to confuse, evade, and survive. But its greatest advantage is not speed. It is independence. Because the kangaroo rat does something almost unimaginable in this dry and unforgiving world. It never drinks water. Not once. Instead, it extracts every drop it needs from the seeds it collects. Through an internal process so efficient it borders on perfection, its body converts dry food into metabolic water, sustaining life where liquid water simply does not exist. Even its breathing is adapted. Specialized nasal passages reduce moisture loss, capturing water from each exhalation and returning it to the body. Nothing is wasted, not a single drop. Every function, every behavior, every movement has been refined by the desert into a system of survival. And even so, it is hunted. Night offers protection, but not safety. Shadows move across the sand. Silent predators patrol the darkness, guided by sound, by scent, by the slightest disturbances in the air. For the kangaroo rat, every second above ground is a risk. It stops, ears alert, body tense. Then, a sound, too subtle for most to perceive. But here, it means everything. In an instant, the rat bursts into motion. One leap, then another. Its body twists in the air, changing direction unpredictably, making it almost impossible to follow. This is not panic, it is strategy. A survival response, perfected over generations. Some predators strike and miss, because the desert has shaped this small creature into something far greater than its size suggests. A specialist, a master of evasion. But survival is not only about movement, it is also about retreat. As quickly as it appeared, the kangaroo rat vanishes again, slipping into a network of burrows beneath the surface. These tunnels are more than shelter. They are protection against heat, against predators, against the constant exposure of the open desert. Inside, conditions are controlled, cooler, safer. Seeds are stored here, carefully gathered during the night, reserves for the days when venturing outside is too dangerous. Even underground, the struggle continues, but here, the odds are slightly more favorable. In the Sonoran Desert, size means nothing. Power is not measured in strength, but in efficiency. And in this harsh and demanding world, the smallest creatures often carry the greatest innovations for survival. Invisible, unstoppable, perfectly adapted to a life where every grain of sand hides a challenge, and every moment demands perfection. When the sun finally releases its hold, the desert exhales. The light fades, the heat retreats, and in its place, a different world begins to emerge. The transformation is almost immediate. Temperatures drop, sometimes by more than 20 degrees. The burning ground cools enough to be walked upon. The air softens. Silence deepens, not into emptiness, but into anticipation. Because this is the hour of movement. Under the cover of darkness, the Sonoran Desert comes alive. Through the lens of night, shapes begin to take form, subtle at first, then unmistakable. In the faint glow of moonlight, and through the cold clarity of infrared vision, Life reveals itself in ways invisible during the day. Heat signatures pulse against the cool background, exposing creatures that would otherwise remain unseen. Above, the sky fills with movement. Bats emerge in silent waves, leaving hidden shelters in caves and crevices. Their wings cut through the air with precision, guided not by sight, but by sound. High-frequency calls expand outward, bouncing off insects and obstacles, returning with a map of the world in perfect detail. A mosquito flutters in the darkness. It does not last long. With a sharp adjustment in flight, a bat intercepts it mid-air, fast, efficient, almost effortless. Then another, and another. In a single night, a bat can consume hundreds of insects, maintaining balance in a system where even the smallest creatures matter. But not all hunters take to the sky. Perched high above the desert floor, an owl watches. Still, silent, invisible. Its large eyes capture the little light that remains, amplifying shadows until they become clear. Its head turns slowly, with precision, tracking the slightest movement below. Even the sound of a heartbeat, buried beneath sand or brush, can guide its aim. Then, without warning, it descends. Without flapping its wings. Without sound. Only a sudden drop, ending in contact. Talons close. Darkness swallows the moment as quickly as it appeared. Elsewhere, something moves closer to the ground. A fox. Light on its feet, it navigates the terrain with quiet confidence, weaving between rocks and low vegetation. Its senses are attuned to the night, ears sensitive to distant rustles, nose catching scents carried by the cooling air. It stops, listens, then moves again. For these nocturnal hunters, darkness is not a limitation, it is an advantage. It conceals them, sharpens their instincts, and gives them access to a world inaccessible under the harsh light of day. And for their prey, the night is both refuge and risk. Because, although the heat no longer threatens them, something else does. Everything here is adapted to this rhythm, to this change, to this delicate window where survival becomes possible again, even if only for a few hours. The desert does not sleep. It changes from a burning wasteland to a shadowed arena of movement, sound, and silent pursuit. Each creature plays its role in this nocturnal exchange, where life continues under the cover of darkness, invisible to most, but no less intense. And as the stars stretch endlessly across the sky, one truth becomes clear. In the Sonoran Desert, night is not the absence of life, it is its peak. In the darkness of the Sonoran Desert, some predators do not announce their presence. They erase it, without sound, without warning, without trace. They move like ghosts. A coyote emerges from the shadows, its form barely distinguishable against the muted tones of the night. Its fur blends perfectly with the earth, a shifting pattern of grey and brown that dissolves under the moonlight. Every step is measured, each paw placed with precision to avoid the slightest sound. It does not rush. It is listening. The desert speaks in whispers, faint cracks, distant movements, vibrations carried through the sand and the air. For the coyote, these are not random sounds, they are signals. Clues in a world where information means survival. It stops, ears forward, body still. Then, slowly, it changes direction, adjusting its path towards something invisible. A hunt has begun. Elsewhere, hidden among rocks and low vegetation, another predator waits. Smaller, heavier, more compact. A lynx. Its presence is almost impossible to detect. Muscles tense beneath a mottled coat, it remains motionless, relying on a camouflage so effective that it renders it invisible. Unlike The wandering coyote, the lynx, is an ambush hunter. It does not cover unnecessary ground. It lets the world come to it. Time passes. Minutes stretch in silence. And then, movement. A small animal comes too close. The lynx's body tenses, every muscle aligning in preparation. Its eyes fix on the target, calculating distance, time, and angle in a fraction of a second. Then it attacks. A sudden burst of power breaks the stillness. The lynx lunges forward with explosive force, closing the distance in an instant. There is no hesitation, no second attempt. Precision is everything. The desert returns to silence just as quickly. For the coyote, the approach is different. It moves constantly across the terrain, covering distance with quiet endurance. Its hunt is not based on a single moment, but on persistence. It tracks, follows, adapts, adjusting to the behavior of its prey over time. Ahead, a slight movement. The coyote lowers its body, reducing its profile, blending with the terrain. Step by step, it advances, using the shadows as cover, letting the darkness conceal its intention. Closer, even closer. Then, a sudden sprint. Silence breaks as speed takes control. The sand scatters beneath its paws as it launches forward, trying to close the distance before the prey can react. For a brief moment, the desert erupts into movement, a chase that unfolds in seconds. Sometimes it ends in success. Sometimes it does not. Because even the most skilled predators cannot guarantee victory here. Energy is limited. Opportunities are scarce. Every failed attempt has a cost. And so, both the coyote and the lynx must balance risk with reward, effort with efficiency. They are not just hunters. They are strategists, masters of movement, experts of silence. In a world where visibility is low and danger is everywhere, their greatest weapon is not strength, but invisibility. And as they return to the shadows, leaving no trace of their presence, the desert regains its stillness once more, as if they had never been there at all. In the Sonoran Desert, survival does not favor only the strongest. It favors the adaptable, and few embody this better than the coyote. Agile, resilient, and infinitely resourceful, the coyote is not bound to a single way of life. It changes, adjusts, and evolves with the desert itself, interpreting its changes, taking advantage of its opportunities, and enduring where others cannot. During the day, it may disappear into the shadows of rocky outcrops or sparse vegetation, conserving energy under the relentless sun. But when the light softens, it returns, alert, determined, and always searching. Because for the coyote, the hunt is never the same. Sometimes it moves alone, a solitary figure crossing the open desert, nose close to the ground, following a trail invisible to the human eye. Every scent tells a story, age, direction, condition. The coyote deciphers it all, building a mental map of its prey long before seeing it. It stops. Tracks converge. Something passed through here recently. The coyote lifts its head, scanning the terrain. The heat still lingers, rising in slight distortions that blur the edges of reality, but instinct cuts through the illusion. It advances, now slower, more deliberate. Closer. Then, suddenly, movement. A hare leaps from its hiding place, muscles in motion, legs extending in powerful strides as it runs across the desert floor. The chase begins instantly. The coyote accelerates. The sand scatters beneath its paws as it advances, closing the distance with calculated bursts of speed. But this is not a reckless chase. It is measured, controlled. The coyote knows its limits and those of its prey. The hare zigzags, changing direction quickly, trying to break the predator's rhythm. For a moment, the distance widens. Then it closes again. Every second matters. Sometimes the coyote succeeds. Sometimes the desert grants the prey another chance. Because here no hunt is guaranteed. But the coyote has another strategy. It does not always hunt alone. At certain times, when the terrain allows it, when the opportunity demands it, it works as part of something greater, a flexible coordination. Not a rigid pack like that of wolves, but an adaptable alliance built out of necessity. Two coyotes move across the landscape, separated by distance, but connected by perception. They do not need constant communication. Each one instinctively understands the role of the other. One drives, the other waits. A prey animal is driven out of its refuge, forced into open ground. It runs, escaping one threat, only to head toward another. The second coyote emerges at the right moment, cutting off the escape, turning confusion into capture. Efficiency through cooperation. A brief alignment of purpose. And when it ends, they may separate again, returning to solitude, carrying with them the advantage of flexibility. This is what makes the coyote so powerful in a place like this. Not size, not strength, but adaptability. The ability to switch between strategies, to read the land, to decide when to pursue and when to wait. Because in the Sonoran Desert, survival is never fixed. It is fluid. And the hunters that endure are not those who dominate the land, but those who understand it. In the Sonoran Desert, survival is often not defined by the hunter, but by the prey. For every predator that stalks the land, there are countless others living on the edge, creatures whose entire existence depends on avoiding a single mistake. They do not pursue, they do not dominate. They endure. And to endure here, they must master three things: speed, invisibility, and escape. The desert offers little cover. The open terrain stretches in every direction, leaving prey exposed to watchful eyes above and silent hunters below. There are no dense forests to hide in, nor rivers in which to disappear. Only rock, sand, and scattered vegetation. So prey species adapt. Some become faster. Across the open ground, a hare grazes cautiously, its large ears constantly turning, scanning for danger. Every muscle in its body is prepared, not for comfort, but for reaction. It feeds, but never fully relaxes, because it knows it is being watched. A shadow shifts in the distance, too subtle for most to notice, but not for the rabbit. Its body tenses, and then, explosion. It bolts. In an instant, stillness turns into movement as the rabbit launches forward, its powerful hind legs propelling it across the desert floor. But it does not run in a straight line. It zigzags. Sharp, unpredictable turns that disrupt the rhythm of any predator in pursuit. Left, right. Sudden changes of direction that force the hunter to constantly adjust, to lose momentum, to hesitate for a fraction of a second. And here, a fraction is everything. Behind it, the predator gives chase, closing in, adjusting. But the rabbit turns again, its movements erratic, chaotic, impossible to predict. Dust rises in its wake, blurring the path, concealing its exact position. The distance stretches, then widens, and finally, the rabbit disappears. Not by running faster outright, but by maneuvering better. Speed alone is not enough. Unpredictability saves lives. Elsewhere, survival takes a different form. Stillness. A small desert rodent crouches near the ground, its body pressed firmly against the contours of the terrain. Its fur matches the sand so perfectly that it becomes almost invisible. Even in plain sight, it disappears. Camouflage is its shield. Predators scan the area, searching for movement, contrast, anything that breaks the pattern, but there is nothing. Only the illusion of emptiness. The rodent remains motionless, heart racing, body tense, waiting for the danger to pass. And often it works, because in the Sonoran Desert, not being seen can be more powerful than running. And when neither speed nor camouflage is enough, there is a final refuge. Below, beneath the surface, lies a network of burrows, hidden tunnels that offer protection from the heat, from predators, from exposure. In seconds, a prey animal can disappear underground, slipping into a space where larger hunters cannot follow. A fox lunges, too late. The entrance collapses behind the fleeing animal, leaving nothing but disturbed sand. Complete escape. This is life on the edge. A constant balancing act between visibility and invisibility, movement and stillness, risk and survival. Because here, every creature is part of the same equation. And for the prey, survival is not about winning. It is about not losing, not even once. Above the burning ground of the Sonoran Desert, another world exists. A world without obstacles, without limits. A world of height, vision, and absolute control. Here, the rulers are not bound to the ground. They dominate it from above. High in the open sky, a hawk glides effortlessly on rising currents of heat. Its wings remain extended, barely moving, while invisible thermals lift it higher and higher. From this vantage point, the desert below is no longer vast and chaotic. It becomes clear, organized, exposed. Nothing remains hidden for long. Its eyes, sharp, precise, and relentless, scan the terrain with astonishing detail. A slight movement in the sand, a flash of motion among rocks. Even from hundreds of meters up, the slightest disturbance can be detected. For the hawk, the desert is alive with signals, and it is always watching. Far below, life continues, unaware of the silent observer above. A lizard pauses briefly in open ground. A rodent moves between patches of shadow. Every action, every decision carries risk. Because above them, death circles in silence. Then, a change. The hawk tilts its wings, adjusting its position. Its focus narrows, locking onto a single target. In that moment, the vast desert disappears. There is only one point of interest, one opportunity, and it commits. The wings fold. The glide becomes a dive. Air rushes past as the hawk accelerates, transforming from a drifting shadow into a descending force. Speed increases rapidly, turning gravity into a weapon. The distance closes in seconds. Below, the prey senses something, too late. A shadow crosses the ground. A brief flash of darkness that triggers instinct, panic, movement. But the reaction is slower than the descent. Impact. Talons extend at the last possible moment, striking with precision and power. The force is controlled, calculated, designed not only to capture, but to end the struggle quickly. And then, it is all over. The hawk rises again, lifting from the ground with its prey secured, returning to the sky where it belongs. But the hawk is not alone. Higher still, an eagle dominates an even greater territory. Larger, stronger, more imposing. Riding the same thermals but with a presence that dominates the airspace. Where the hawk is agile, the eagle is powerful, capable of taking larger prey, capable of enduring longer flights across the vast expanse of the desert. Its shadow moves slowly over the land below, stretching across rock and sand like a silent warning. Everything below reacts. Some freeze, some flee. All recognize the threat, because in the Sonoran Desert, the sky is not empty. It is a hunting ground, a domain where vision replaces stealth, where height replaces concealment, and where patience is not measured in stillness, but in flight. From above, there is nowhere to hide. No burrow deep enough, no camouflage perfect enough. Only the constant awareness that at any moment, from the open sky, something may descend. Fast, silent, unstoppable. The lords of the sky do not chase. They choose. And once they do, the outcome is already decided. For most of the year, the Sonoran Desert holds its breath. The ground is dry, the air is still. Life moves carefully, conserving energy, waiting for a change that may or may not come. And then it comes. Far beyond the horizon, forces begin to shift. Warm air rises, drawing moisture from distant oceans inland. The sky, once empty and relentless, begins to gain weight. The light dims, the shadows deepen. Something is forming. Clouds gather, dark, towering, alive with tension. They advance over the desert with a presence that feels almost alien, casting vast moving shadows over the land below. The wind rises, carrying with it a scent rarely known here. Rain. At first, it is only a whisper. A few scattered drops striking the dust, disappearing almost instantly. But within moments, the sky opens, and the desert transforms. Rain falls in sudden, powerful bursts, soaking the parched land. The sound alone is overwhelming, water striking rock, sand, and cactus in a chaotic rhythm. Dry channels awaken, filling with rushing currents that cut across the land with unstoppable force. Water collects in low areas, gathers in cracks, seeps into the ground. For a brief moment, the desert drinks. Everything changes. The air cools, the ground softens. The silence is broken, not with danger, but with possibility. Because beneath the surface, something has been waiting. Seeds, buried for months, sometimes years, respond immediately. Activated by moisture, they begin to awaken, opening and stretching upward with urgency. Time is limited. The opportunity is brief, and so life accelerates. Within days, the desert begins to bloom. Small green shoots emerge from the ground, spreading across the landscape in patches that grow with each passing hour. Then, color. Flowers emerge in sudden bursts, painting the desert floor with yellows, purples, reds, and whites. What was once barren becomes vibrant, full of movement and transformation. It happens so quickly it seems unreal. A span of time of rebirth. Bees and insects arrive almost immediately, drawn by the explosion of nectar and pollen. They move frantically from flower to flower, pollinating, feeding, sustaining a chain reaction that spreads throughout the ecosystem. Herbivores follow. Rodents, rabbits, and other grazing animals take advantage of the sudden abundance, feeding on fresh vegetation that will not last long. For a short time, food is no longer scarce. Predators notice. Movement increases, opportunities multiply. The desert, once silent and contained, becomes active, dynamic, unpredictable. But this miracle is temporary. Clouds begin to dissipate, the rain diminishes, the sun returns, and with it, the heat. Water evaporates quickly under the relentless sky. Puddles shrink, then disappear. The ground hardens once more. Flowers wither, their brief lives completed, leaving behind seeds that will once again wait beneath the surface, waiting for the next rain, the next opportunity. Because in the Sonoran Desert, Life does not follow a steady rhythm. It intensifies. It bursts into existence, thrives in a fleeting window, and then retreats once more into silence. A cycle of extremes, a balance between scarcity and abundance. And in that balance lies one of the desert's greatest secrets. That even in the harshest conditions, life finds a way to bloom. When the rains arrive, they do more than awaken the desert. They ignite it. What was once a contained landscape suddenly becomes a surge of activity, an explosion of life unfolding at every level, from the smallest insect to the largest predator. The transformation is not gradual. It is immediate, urgent, because in the Sonoran Desert, abundance is temporary, and everything must respond. At ground level, the first signs are almost invisible. Small movements, subtle changes in the soil. Then, emergence. Insects emerge in overwhelming numbers, drawn by moisture and opportunity. Ants invade the damp earth, reorganizing their colonies, expanding their reach. Beetles surface after long periods of inactivity, their hardened shells gleaming under the returning sun. Winged insects rise into the air, filling the space above the desert with movement. What was once silence now hums with energy. This is the foundation of the desert's sudden abundance. Because where insects multiply, life follows. A cloud of flying insects moves through the air, chaotic and dense. Within moments, it attracts attention. Bats return in force, their movements more precise, more frequent. Feeding becomes easier, faster, more efficient. Each pass through the swarm yields success. Energy, once carefully rationed, now flows more freely. On the ground, lizards take advantage of the increase. A desert iguana darts forward, capturing insects with quick, precise movements. It barely needs to search. Prey is everywhere. During a brief window, survival shifts from scarcity to opportunity. Even the smallest predators benefit. Spiders rebuild their webs among the spines of cacti and low shrubs, their silk catching the increased flow of insects in the air. Scorpions emerge from their hiding places, their movements deliberate yet decisive, sensing the abundance around them. The entire food chain accelerates. Herbivores also thrive in this moment. Fresh vegetation spreads across the desert floor, providing food for rodents, rabbits, and other herbivorous animals. With more food available, their activity increases. They move more. They feed longer. They take risks they would otherwise avoid. And where prey gathers, predators follow. Coyotes patrol areas now rich with movement, their chances of success increasing with every step. Birds of prey circle more frequently, their sharp eyes tracking the heightened activity below. Even snakes, once patient and selective, find prey more often, reducing the time between hunts. The desert becomes dynamic, connected. Each action triggers another. Each increase feeds something larger. But beneath this abundance lies urgency. Nothing here is permanent. The insects will not last, the vegetation will disappear, the water will fade. And so, every creature moves with purpose, feeding, growing, reproducing, compressing what elsewhere might take months into mere days. This is not just life blooming, it is life racing against time. A brief and explosive window where the desert reveals its hidden potential, where scarcity gives way to abundance, and survival becomes, if only for a moment, a little easier. Until the cycle turns again, until the heat returns, and the desert demands everything once more. Before the first light touches the Sonoran Desert, it is already awake. In the dim blue of early dawn, a solitary coyote moves through the silence. Its body is lean, shaped by scarcity. Every rib, every muscle, tells a story of survival in a land that gives little and demands everything. It has survived the night, but the day ahead will decide what comes next. It pauses on a ridge. The horizon begins to glow, and with it, the temperature begins its constant rise. Time is limited. The coyote lowers its head and begins to move, nose close to the ground, reading the desert like a map written in scent. Something passed here. Not long ago, a rabbit. The trail is faint, but clear enough. The coyote follows it, step by step, conserving energy, avoiding unnecessary movement. It does not rush. It cannot afford to. The desert punishes waste. Ahead the terrain opens. The rabbit appears, feeding cautiously, unaware it has already been found. The coyote lowers its body. Stillness. It waits for the right moment, letting the distance close enough to make the effort worthwhile. The wind shifts slightly, favorable. Everything aligns. Then, movement. The coyote lunges forward, breaking the silence in an instant. The rabbit reacts, fleeing at full speed across the open ground, its powerful legs driving a desperate escape. The chase is fast, explosive, but short. The rabbit zigzags sharply, forcing the coyote to adjust, losing just enough speed to widen the gap. Within seconds, the opportunity is lost. The prey disappears into cover, leaving only disturbed sand behind. The coyote slows. It stops. It does not continue the chase. It cannot. The energy spent is energy lost, and in this desert, that loss can be fatal. For a moment it remains still, breathing heavily, recalculating. The sun is higher now. The heat increases. The hunt is over. For now. By midday, the desert becomes unbearable. The coyote retreats into the shade of a rocky outcrop, its body pressed against the cooler ground. Its breathing slows. Movement stops. The outside world becomes a blur of heat and light. But here, in this narrow strip of shade, survival continues in silence. Hours pass. The sun dominates. Nothing moves. Then, slowly, it begins to descend. The air cools. The light softens. The desert releases its grip once more. The coyote rises. The hunger remains. Stronger now. As twilight falls, it moves again, this time toward a dry riverbed, a place where life tends to gather when the heat subsides. Its pace is steady, determined. It has failed once, but failure is part of survival here. It listens. A faint rustle. Closer. This time, it does not rush. It circles, adjusts its position, uses the terrain, the shadows, the wind. Patience replaces urgency. And then another opportunity. The outcome is not seen, because in the Sonoran Desert, survival is not defined by a single moment, a single hunt, or a single day. It is a story written over time, a balance between success and failure, endurance and adaptation. And when night fully takes hold, the coyote disappears once more into the darkness, still searching, still surviving, still part of a cycle that never truly ends. In the Sonoran Desert, survival is not a victory. It is a temporary state, a brief moment between two outcomes, life and death. Because here, the struggle never ends. As the sun rises once again over the arid landscape, the cycle begins anew. Predators awaken hungry, prey awaken afraid. And between them lies a fragile balance, constantly shifting, never stable for long. A snake lies coiled beneath a rock, its body motionless, conserving energy after a successful hunt days before. It does not need to eat immediately, but it will. It must. Because every meal is uncertain, and the next opportunity may be far away. Nearby, A rodent searches for seeds, moving quickly, gathering what little it can find. The ground is dry again. The abundance brought by the rain has vanished, leaving scarcity once more. Every seed matters. Each one could mean the difference between survival and starvation. This is the first struggle, finding enough to live. And often, there is not enough. For many creatures, death does not come from a predator's attack, but from the slow loss of energy. Days pass without food. Movement becomes weaker. Decisions become slower. The desert does not need to attack. It simply waits. Because starvation is as much a predator here as any claw or fang. But when food is found, it rarely goes uncontested. A carcass lies exposed, the remains of a recent hunt. It draws attention immediately. A coyote approaches, cautious but determined. Hunger drives it forward. Then another appears. Competition begins. They circle, watching each other, assessing risk. A fight could mean injury, and injury in this desert often means death. And so they hesitate. One moves closer. The other responds. Tension builds, but neither commits. Because survival is not just about taking. It is about knowing when not to risk everything. Finally, one yields, stepping back, allowing the other to feed. It is not weakness, it is calculation. There will be other opportunities, perhaps, or perhaps not. Elsewhere, the cycle continues more directly. A hawk dives from above, ending the life of a small animal in an instant. There is no hesitation, no pause. Predation is immediate, efficient, and necessary. For one to live, another must die. This is the second struggle, taking life to sustain life. It is not cruel. It is not merciful. It simply is. Throughout the desert, these moments unfold constantly, seen and unseen. A lizard captures an insect. A fox hunts a rodent. A snake waits for its next opportunity. Each interaction is part of a system that depends on balance, even when it appears chaotic. Because without predation, populations would grow beyond what the land can sustain. Without scarcity, there would be no pressure to adapt. Without competition, there would be no evolution. The struggle shapes everything. It defines behavior, drives movement, and determines which species endure and which disappear. And yet, despite its harshness, it is not without order. It is a cycle. Life feeds on life. Death gives way to new opportunities. Energy passes from one form to another, never wasted, never still. In the Sonoran Desert, nothing is permanent. Not success, not failure, not even survival itself. Only the struggle, infinite, relentless, and absolutely necessary. In the Sonoran Desert, nothing exists in isolation. Every movement, every hunt, every moment of survival is part of something greater, an intricate balance that holds this hostile world together. At first glance, the desert appears chaotic. Predators pursue, prey, flee. Life rises and falls in a constant cycle of tension and release. But beneath that apparent disorder lies a system of remarkable precision. A balance. Predators and prey are not enemies in the way we usually imagine. They are partners in survival. A coyote hunts a rabbit, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The rabbit escapes, not out of victory, but out of instinct. And in that exchange, whether it ends in life or death, the balance is maintained, because if predators are too successful, prey populations collapse. And if prey grow without control, the land itself begins to fail. The desert cannot sustain excess. Resources are too limited, water too scarce, vegetation too fragile. Each population is kept in place by pressure, a delicate system of control shaped by thousands of years of adaptation. When the rains arrive and vegetation briefly blooms, herbivores increase their activity, food becomes abundant, and for a short time, survival becomes easier. Rodents reproduce. Rabbits feed more freely. Movement increases across the land, but this growth does not go unnoticed. Predators respond. Coyotes expand their hunting range. Birds of prey circle more frequently. Snakes find prey more often. The increase in prey fuels an increase in predation, gradually restoring balance before the system tilts too far. And when the rains disappear, the cycle shifts again. Scarcity returns. Herbivore populations decline as food becomes limited. Some starve. Others migrate or take refuge in deeper areas. With fewer prey available, predators must adapt, hunting less frequently, traveling farther, or conserving energy for longer periods. The system tightens. It balances once more. This constant adjustment is what allows life to persist in such an unforgiving environment. It is not stability in the traditional sense. It is dynamic, always changing, always responding. A balance built on change. But the connections go further. The saguaro cactus, towering and still, provides shelter to birds, insects, and mammals. In return, those creatures pollinate its flowers, disperse its seeds, and protect it from pests. What appears to be a solitary plant is, in reality, the center of a living network. Insects pollinate flowers that feed herbivores. Herbivores sustain predators. Predators control populations, preventing overconsumption. Even in death, bodies return nutrients to the soil, feeding the next generation of plants. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is isolated. Even the smallest organism plays a role. A single insect may seem insignificant, but multiplied across the desert, it becomes the foundation of entire food chains. Remove it, and the effects spread, altering connections that extend far beyond what is immediately visible. This is the true nature of the Sonoran Desert. Not empty, not random, but interdependence. A system where survival is shared, even among those who compete, where life and death are not opposites, but partners in a continuous exchange. And within this balance lies resilience, because no single species defines the desert. It is defined by the relationships between them, by the constant push and pull, the rise and fall, the endless adjustments that keep the system intact. In a place where conditions are extreme and resources limited, balance is not just important, it is everything. Without it, the desert would collapse in silence. But with it, life endures, silent, persistent, and against all odds. For thousands of years, the Sonoran Desert has balanced itself with quiet precision. But now, something new has entered the system. Not a predator, not a prey species, something far less predictable. The human presence. Along the edges of this ancient landscape, cities continue to expand, spreading into lands that once belonged entirely to the rhythms of the desert. Roads cut through migration routes. Lights erase the darkness upon which nocturnal life depends. What was once continuous habitat is fragmented, divided into parts that are harder to traverse, harder to survive. For some species, adaptation is possible. Coyotes move closer to urban areas, learning to take advantage of new food sources. Certain birds adjust their behavior to artificial light. But for many others, the change is too sudden, too disruptive. And the balance begins to shift. Water, already the desert's most precious resource, is being extracted at an increasing rate. Groundwater is withdrawn to sustain growing populations, agriculture, and industry. Rivers that once flowed seasonally are altered, reduced, or completely redirected. The impact is subtle at first. One plant receives less water, a flowering cycle shortens, an insect population declines. But in a system built on interdependence, small changes do not remain small. They spread through the food chain, through behavior, through survival itself. And then there is climate change. Temperatures rise beyond historical extremes. Heat waves last longer. Rains become less predictable, sometimes more intense, sometimes completely absent. The delicate timing of the monsoon, so critical to desert cycles, begins to shift. For a place already defined by limits, even small changes can push conditions beyond what some species can endure. The desert does not collapse overnight. It adjusts, as it always has. But the pace of change is different now. Faster, less forgiving, and not all life can keep up. Even so, the Sonoran Desert remains resilient. It has survived extremes for millennia. It continues to adapt, respond, persist in ways that often go unnoticed. But resilience is not invulnerability. And the future of this ecosystem may depend not on its ability to withstand change, but on whether that change is allowed to continue unchecked. Because this desert does not need humans to survive. But now, increasingly, its survival may depend on human decisions.